José Irizarry is widely known as the most corrupt DEA agent in the agency's history, which is quite a feat.
But by far, the biggest black eye of the DEA in recent years has been the José Irizarry case.
Minding the house. No one was checking to see. There were no controls.
Before the DEA caught on, José Irizarry had been throwing yacht parties in Cartagena with money he stole from the very cartels he was assigned to investigate, living a lifestyle that mirrored the drug lords he was paid to take down.
It was mostly about drinking and girls. And then we sprinkled in a couple work things in there, but it was more of a party first, work second type of deal.
That went on for 7 years and cost $9 million in cartel drug money before anyone at the agency noticed.
DEA is a game. The drug war is a game. It was a very fun game that we were playing.
This is the story of José Irizarry and how he became the most corrupt agent in DEA history. José Ismael Irizarry was born and raised in Puerto Rico, bilingual in English and Spanish, and by the time he applied to the Drug Enforcement Administration in 2009, he had already served as a U.S. Border Patrol agent and a federal air marshal. On paper, he was exactly the kind of recruit the DEA wanted for Latin American operations, where Spanish fluency was essential. But the paper didn't tell the full story. When Irizarry sat for his DEA polygraph exam, he failed it. He had recently declared bankruptcy with debts approaching $500,000, and he maintained close personal ties to Diego Marín Buitrago, a man already on law enforcement's radar as a suspected money launderer, the same man who would later become the godfather of Irizarry's twin daughters with his Colombian wife Natalia Gomez. The DEA hired him anyway, despite indications he showed signs of deception in his polygraph and had declared bankruptcy with debts of almost $500,000 and put him in one of the most sensitive units in the agency, undercover money laundering investigations out of the Miami field office, where agents handled millions of dollars in cartel drug money as part of sting operations designed to dismantle trafficking networks. They handed a man who couldn't pay his own bills direct access to cartel cash, and nobody thought twice about it. In Miami, Irizarry learned the trade from veteran agents who, in his own words, came up in New York City in the 1990s when cocaine was flooding American streets. He absorbed everything about how undercover operations worked, how cartel money moved through shell accounts and front companies, and how the DEA inserted itself into those financial pipelines to trace the cash back to the traffickers behind it.
You launder $100,000 and you can figure out who dropped off the money. You work that person higher up into the organization. You find out who the traffickers are. You do bank subpoenas. You find out where the money is going. So the goal was to generate targets, seizures, and prosecutions.
That was the system Irizarry was trained to run, and he was exceptional at it. He won special permission to set up an undercover operation to send money and ship contraband merchandise to Colombia on behalf of suspected drug traffickers using front companies, shell bank accounts, and couriers, and his investigations led to dozens of drug arrests. His supervisors considered him a star agent at the Miami field office, and the agency kept giving him more responsibility, more access, and more trust. The DEA was building him into one of their best. They had no idea they were also building one of their worst. In 2011, he reconnected with the man who would change everything. Diego Marín Buitrago was already familiar to Irizarry through personal ties that predated his DEA career, but their professional relationship began in 2011. In the Colombian underworld, Marín was known as Papa Smurf, or the contraband czar, a reputed henchman for the Cali cartel who had been on Colombian law enforcement's radar since 1993 and was running what the IRS estimated to be a $100 million a year money laundering operation that stretched across 4 continents. Now, to understand what Marín did and what Irizarry would eventually hijack, you need to understand how cartel drug money actually gets cleaned, because most people picture duffel bags full of cash, and the reality is completely different. Say a cartel earns $10 million selling cocaine in the United States. They need that money back in Colombia as pesos, but they can't just wire it. A money broker like Marín solves that problem. He connects the cartels with Colombian businesses that want cheap US dollars for importing goods. He takes the cartel cash, deposits it into US bank accounts he controls, uses those dollars to buy electronics and textiles and appliances, ships the goods to Colombia where they get sold in San Andresitos, the informal shopping districts packed with budget-priced merchandise that exist in every Colombian city, and then pays the pesos from those sales back to the cartels. To anyone looking from the outside, that $10 million in drug money now looks like revenue from a legitimate import business in Bogota. This system is called the Black Market Peso Exchange, and it has been running across Latin America for decades. Marín was one of the largest operators in this system, and Irizarry didn't just understand how it worked. He was trained by the DEA to take it apart. Instead, he decided to use it. By 2013, he had officially registered Marín as a DEA confidential informant, a move that on the surface looked like smart law enforcement, but in reality gave Marín official protection from scrutiny by any agency. Irizarry used that cover to steer undercover DEA wire transfers to Marín's associates, provide safe passage for containers full of contraband, and actively throw off other federal agencies that were investigating Marín independently. When a suspicious federal investigator raised questions about Marín, Irizarry told him that people make up stories and called Marín an open book. In return, Marín treated him like family, showering him with expensive Hublot watches, luxury cars, international trips, cash, and a $750,000 condo paid for with laundered cartel money, along with a Tiffany diamond ring for his wife Natalia. An internal government record said Marín viewed Irizarry like a son, and when Irizarry later spoke to the Associated Press, he put it simply, Marín would pay him, and if Marín ever needed him, he had him. In 2015, the DEA rewarded Irizarry for what they believed was outstanding work with a coveted overseas posting to the Cartagena resident office in Colombia. He moved to the Caribbean resort city, bought a $767,000 home in the Caribbean resort city of Cartagena, on top of residences in South Florida and Puerto Rico, and settled into what was supposed to be one of the most important assignments in the agency's foreign operations. Instead, it became the setting for the most brazen federal corruption scheme the DEA had ever seen. Irizarry and his circle of colleagues gave themselves a nickname. They called themselves Team America, and it told you everything you needed to know about what they had become. A crew of federal agents using the cover of international drug investigations to fund a lifestyle that had nothing to do with law enforcement.
We would make up either an interview or a coordination meeting, and we would determine where we wanted to travel. So we would make it wherever we kind of wanted to go.
They fabricated reasons to travel to whichever city had the best party or the best sporting event, hitting VIP rooms in Caribbean strip clubs, stopping in Amsterdam's red light district, and launching yachts off the coast of Cartagena, loaded with booze and more than a dozen prostitutes, with stops timed around Real Madrid soccer matches and Rafael Nadal tennis games. Irizarry said 90% of their business trips were fabricated, with fake interviews, fake coordination meetings, and fake justifications filed to cover every one of them, all funded by cartel drug money they were skimming from the operations they were supposed to be running. And nobody questioned it because Team America kept producing the stats the DEA cared about.
We knew the game. We knew DEA is about stats, so our cases brought them stats, and it got very good press. Everybody was happy all the way around.
As long as the arrest numbers looked good and the press releases kept coming, the DEA had no reason to examine what its agents were actually doing with the cartel money passing through their hands.
It's almost like it became a ball rolling downhill. Launder more money, seize more money. Launder more money, take more trips to Europe, take nice trips all over the world, and seize more money.
That cycle fed itself for years because every dollar they stole from the cartels was replaced by new cartel money flowing into the next operation. And because the DEA had failed to effectively oversee and manage the undercover money laundering operations that moved tens of millions of dollars in drug proceeds each year, there was virtually no external oversight to catch the pattern. The scale of what Irizarry had stolen became obvious the moment you looked at how he was living. Just a few years earlier, he had declared bankruptcy owing nearly $500,000, and now he was maintaining 3 homes across Puerto Rico, South Florida, and Cartagena, while driving a BMW alongside 3 Land Rovers and wearing gold hublot watches gifted by a man the DEA was supposed to be investigating. He purchased a 2017 Lamborghini Huracan Spider in Miami for a co-conspirator's family member, gave his wife a $30,000 Tiffany diamond ring, and traveled first class to Europe carrying Louis Vuitton luggage as though a government salary could explain any of it. Prosecutors would later say that his spending habits had begun to mimic the ostentatious tastes of the narcos he was tasked with targeting. And yet for years, nobody at the agency raised a single question about how a man who had recently been bankrupt was suddenly living like one of the cartel bosses he was paid to bring down. The most audacious part was that the actual drug traffickers whose money Irizarry was stealing had no idea he was the one taking it. When their cash disappeared from undercover operations, they chalked it up to the normal cat-and-mouse game with law enforcement. They had no way of knowing that the agent handling their money was pocketing it for himself. What brought Irizarry down was not an internal investigation or a supervisor finally asking questions about his lifestyle. It was a single wire transfer that went to the wrong person at the wrong time. He diverted an $87,000 payment that was supposed to reach a drug trafficker in Cali, Colombia. What Irizarry didn't know was that the trafficker on the receiving end was secretly an informant for the Miami-Dade money laundering strike force, a completely separate law enforcement team that had nothing to do with Irizarry or his operations. When the expected payment never arrived, the strike force noticed and filed a complaint with the Justice Department, and that complaint led investigators directly to Gustavo Yabrudi, the Venezuelan-American dual citizen who had been Irizarry's key partner in the scheme for years. Yabrudi's arrest pulled the first thread that unraveled the entire operation. There was another critical mistake too. In 2016, Irizarry tried to prevent Colombian authorities from seizing a shipping container belonging to Marín that turned out to hold $3 million worth of contraband liquor, cigarettes, and clothing. He falsely told U.S. Customs officials the shipment was part of an undercover DEA operation, and within days, the U.S. ambassador to Colombia kicked him out of the country. Irizarry resigned from the DEA in January 2018, but the investigation was already well underway. 2 years later, on February 21, 2020, FBI agents arrested Irizarry and his wife Natalia at their residence near San Juan, Puerto Rico on 19 federal counts, including conspiracy to launder money, bank fraud, and aggravated identity theft. Both pleaded guilty that September. On December 9, 2021, José Irizarry stood in a Tampa, Florida federal courtroom before U.S. District Judge Charlene Honeywell and broke down in tears. He told the court that the biggest punishment was not being able to explain to his 2 young daughters why he would be going away for so long.
I should have been stronger and I wasn't, and I'm not, I can't justify my actions. I should have known. I knew it was right from wrong, and I chose wrong many times, and that's why I'm here.
The judge sentenced him to more than 12 years in federal prison for conspiring to launder money with a Colombian cartel, 145 months, and ordered restitution along with the forfeiture of the Tiffany ring and a luxury sports car. His wife Natalia received 60 months of probation and was ordered to return the ring. And then Judge Honeywell said something that turned the case from one man's corruption into an indictment of the entire agency. Before entering federal detention in San Juan, Puerto Rico, Irizarry sat down with Associated Press reporters Jim Mustian and Joshua Goodman for a series of interviews in which he accused long-trusted DEA colleagues of joining him in skimming millions in cartel money from undercover operations, and made it clear he would not take the fall alone. He named names in sealed court documents and FBI debriefings, and he left the public with one line that still hangs over the agency: "I'm not the only one."
They kind of painted me in this picture of that I'm this mastermind of what we were doing, and I wasn't the mastermind.
The fallout spread across the agency. The DEA had failed to effectively oversee the undercover money laundering operations that Irizarry exploited, with no required reports filed to Congress since at least 2006. DEA Administrator Ann Milgram ordered an outside review of the agency's foreign operations spanning 69 countries, and Justice Department investigators began questioning up to 24 current and former agents and prosecutors accused by Irizarry of either participating in or turning a blind eye to the corruption. More than a dozen agents were disciplined or placed under investigation, and one of the names that kept surfacing was George Zumberos, Irizarry's former partner, who had traveled extensively overseas for money laundering investigations and who resigned from the DEA after being stripped of his gun, badge, and security clearance for invoking his Fifth Amendment rights when subpoenaed to testify before the grand jury. But despite all of it, despite the judge saying there are others, despite the Inspector General confirming systemic failures, despite Irizarry naming names from inside a federal prison, he remains the only government employee to face criminal charges. Diego Marín, the contraband czar whose empire Irizarry shielded for years, was eventually detained in Portugal, where he remains fighting extradition. Gustavo Yabrudi pleaded guilty and received 46 months. Natalia got probation. Everyone else walked. José Irizarry is currently serving his sentence at a minimum security federal facility in Florida. He stole $9 million in cartel drug money, threw yacht parties in Cartagena, and lived like the narcos he was paid to hunt while the DEA looked the other way. The agency says it has since strengthened its hiring and discipline policies, and the outside review of foreign operations is ongoing. But the system that gave a bankrupt man who failed his polygraph direct access to millions in cartel cash and sent him to Colombia with nobody watching is still in place.